Hey everyone, my name is Matthew Tomasi. I'm head of partnerships at Bets Recruiting. Essentially, we are a recruiting agency specializing in hiring sales, marketing, customer success folk for early stage tech startups, primarily B2B software as a service companies. But in particular, we pride ourselves in being consultants, working alongside hiring managers and internal talent teams to make sure they have the best talent as quickly as possible.
Hey guys, my name is Ty Abernathy. I'm a co-founder of a company called Take the Interview. We're focused on disrupting the way enterprise organizations approach the interview process. So we offer digital recruiting solutions that are focused on really anything post-apply to hire. We power a lot of the communication, screening, and interviewing solutions for large organizations.
Hi everyone, my name is Laura Burkhart. I've been recruiting for 10 years. I've spent half of my career on the agency side over at Michael Page International, and the other half now internal as an HR professional. I work for Superfly, which is probably best known as the creators of Bonnaroo and other music festivals. And I'm really excited to be here tonight.
Hi, I'm Mel. I'm going to keep it at that. My last name is really long. I'm with AppBoy, which is a CRM marketing automation tool for companies that want to build meaningful relationships with their customers. We work with companies like Tinder. I don't know if anyone who uses it. Domino's. We work with companies like Microsoft. There's a lot of fun, and I'm happy to be here.
Cool, so for our first question to kind of kick off this panel on the art of interviewing, what do you think makes for a good interview? Like, what are the top 2 or 3 things you look for as a sign that the interview really did its job and you've got real value out of it? Who wants to go first?
So I'm going to talk about this a bit more in my presentation, but essentially having purpose behind every question that you ask. You're going to identify a key set of criteria you want to evaluate these people against. You want to make sure that every question you have throughout the process is targeted at kind of unearthing those criteria within these potential colleagues of yours. That way, there's no redundancies. People aren't leaving saying, why the hell did 3 people ask me the same question? So structure your interview processes accordingly and make sure, again, that is purposeful.
I would say clarity and achievement are the 2 words, and I'll explain these. So clarity, I think the sign of a poor interview is when you walk out of that interview and you don't have clarity on whether someone could be a good match for that position or not. Then we've probably all been in the position of having an interview and stepping out and kind of being in that sort of gray area regarding the candidate on where you think they might be a match. And at least I found the more, and to your point on the type of questions you're asking and really just having a plan going in can help ensure that you have clarity. And another part of it is kind of what you're using to evaluate the candidate based on, right? If you don't know what that is and what you're really after, it's very hard to really clearly know if you have it or not. And then achievement, just around, do you have a clear sense for what this candidate has accomplished and what really fires them up, right? So have you dug in to really understand sort of where they excel and find an area where they're passionate about. So.
I really find that some of my most successful interviews feel a little bit like a performance of sorts. If a candidate writes me a note afterwards saying, gee, I wasn't sure if I wanted the role, but after speaking with you and how passionate you are about the company, I know that I want this role. So for me, I think a successful interview is one where the candidate also feels excited, and it's not just sort of a one-way interrogation. It's more of a sort of conversation, good chemistry. I get what I need out of the interview, which is assessing some skills, and they get what they need out of the interview, which is, the information they need to make a decision for their career move.
Well, for me, a successful interview means that everything went without a hitch. So everybody was on time, candidate was on time, the managers were on time, the right questions were asked, feedback sessions have gone well, and the candidate left the building feeling like they know exactly what they interviewed for. They have a very good overview of what the company does, what we want them to do with the job. I find that to be the key for me that's been a successful interview.
So now that we kind of talked about what you find to make a good interview, what are some of the things about the interview process that you have found to be less valuable or maybe more difficult or tedious that, you always thought, like, why are we doing something like this? We don't always have to go down the road that way.
So to this point, I mean, this is something very valuable, and I find it difficult, and a lot of people think it may be just a tedious task, but if it is a pass on a candidate, just calling them after and giving them live feedback. That's a great part of the candidate experience. If you shoot them like a cookie cutter email, sorry, like you're not a fit, they're gonna tell their friends, they're gonna write a Glassdoor review about your company, which is gonna hurt your brand overall. So something that's challenging, but definitely worth picking up the phone for.
Yeah, I would say my least favorite part of my job, a lot of my friends always say, wow, that must be so cool to be a recruiter and change someone's life and help them land a job that they really, really want. But for me, it's for every one person that gets the job. There are the 150 people that applied, there are the 10 that interviewed and didn't get it. So for me, yeah, I'd say my least favorite part is, turning them down, but I agree, it's important and critical, and to have that closure, because I think, real-time feedback is important for the candidate experience.
I would echo that, but I would also add scheduling. I hate scheduling. It takes time away from sourcing, it takes time away to be a recruiter, and I'll just leave it at that. That's one thing that if I could remove from my job on a day-to-day basis, that would be one.
Okay, well, now that we kind of see two themes emerging. One is being able to tell people that you want to pass on them, and the other is actually scheduling the damn things. In what facets of interviewing or things related to interviewing, like scheduling, for example, have you found technology to be most helpful? Keeping in mind that none of you guys have been paid by anybody to endorse, so happy for you guys to mention whichever products or tools that you find most valuable for your businesses. Or if not, helpful, but maybe also perhaps innovative or interesting, and keeping in mind that this will also come up in some of your presentations as well.
I mean, I'd say anything that is administrative and repetitive and does not require a very high degree of thought by the recruiter is up for automation. It is up for technology to come in and streamline the process in some way. So there are a significant number of points throughout the interview process that would apply to that. Scheduling being one, to your point, Alan. Screening being another. Even just communication, right? I mean, how many times have we been a part of a recruiting process where, you're kind of humming along, but maybe there's other candidates in the mix and you're waiting 2 weeks before your next round interview, like just keeping candidates informed on where they are in the process, status, things of that nature, who's available, who's off the market, all of these things that can add up in a very significant way, even tracking down hiring managers post-interview and having managers show up on time. So I think just a lot of these things that recruiters end up doing that are very administrative are fair game for automation. There's a lot of great tools out there. I'll leave it with that.
But I mean, I think for the benefit of kind of our audience, do feel free to mention examples of tools that have been helpful for you, so people can also have the chance to look them up later.
Sure, so I could not live without LinkedIn, I don't think. It's just been such a valuable tool for being proactive and reaching out to talent that may not otherwise be applying and looking for a new role. I'd say I probably fill about at least 50% of my roles that way, especially at the more senior level. As far as applicant tracking systems, we're using Jazz, which I think is great. You get a good bang for your buck with Jazz. We've been around for 20 years, but we're a little bit more in a startup in that we've doubled in size in the last 2 years. So Jazz for me does what I need it to do. I think if money were no object, I'm really interested in Greenhouse. So yeah, I try and take as many demos as I can. I think part of being a good HR professional is taking those sales calls and taking those demos and being on top of the new emerging technologies. I sat on a demo the other day that had like a robotic assistant that sort of mimics being a real person, and the company claims that people can't tell it's a robot, so all you have to do is kind of CC this robot on things you needed to do, and all of a sudden things pop on the calendar. I don't know how well it works, but I'm interested in something like that.
If somebody could make an Alexa for recruiting, it would be amazing. I could just tell her, Alexa, schedule time for an interview, and she'll know exactly what to do. I think for me, that would be like the just administrative tasks, just eliminating as much of those as we can, would be beneficial.
I think with our recruiters, we take almost a SaaS sales model approach to how we go after candidates, like highly personalized messages that are adding value. Opening with a personalized opener, a value-add body that addresses a specific need that you assume they might have, and then asking if it's a priority for them, and if moving is a priority, even if it's not, just having a call to action to get them on the phone with you. And what we've incorporated in addition to LinkedIn Recruiter, which is the in-mail route, is Outreach.io. A lot of salespeople use it, but I found it to be effective for our recruiters. Essentially, it's an outbound messaging tool where you can create a sequence. What that is a cadence essentially. So 8 to 12 touch points over the course of 3 to 4 weeks. Email, cold call, in-mail. You could kind of build this into your outreach tool. From there, build kind of custom templates, which are the frameworks for these messages, but they allow you to go in and then personalize them for each candidate. And once you hit send, it'll send the series of emails you plan in advance, and you can kind of walk away. It's a good way to save time and also stay on top of your task management. So I recommend that as well.
Cool. So maybe just to stay on that point a little more, because you guys already started getting into what was going to be my next question as well, which is what kind of things would you like to see, for example, Alexa for recruiting. But do you guys have any more examples of tools or technology that has been particularly helpful during something to do with the actual interview itself? I mean, so we definitely touched on scheduling, we touched on keeping a cadence of communication, but regarding the actual interview and the goals that you mentioned in the first question about what's important for a good interview, be purposeful, clarity, achievement. Have you seen technology to really address those goals well?
We use Greenhouse at Appaway, and I found scorecards to be extremely helpful. And the way we're going to be doing it this year at Appaway is we're going to sit down with each head of the department and sort of define what good looks to them and incorporate it with scorecards. So when interviewers are actually going into the room to interview somebody, they will know exactly what to ask, they know exactly what competencies they need to be measuring, they know exactly what to answer when they receive that scorecard. So I found the scorecard being super helpful. It also keeps the data for your next hire. So you don't have to always reinvent the wheel. You do it once, and it's there for you to know until they change the job completely.
I know there are tools out there like this, but I've never been fortunate enough to really kind of have the budget to incorporate it. But something, similar to like a CRM that kind of keeps those relationships warm, especially as a one-person department at the moment. I don't always have the time to really make sure that everyone's getting that Superfly love. That those sort of candidates that maybe come in second or third place in an interview because there was maybe just something a little off in terms of just a little too junior for something or just a little bit out of our range, so that you can keep in touch with them for future things. So something similar to a CRM. I know those tools are out there, but I think keeping in touch with candidates sort of on a mass basis with still having it feel personal.
Is that something that some of you guys may have encountered already?
Well, so this is something for us. Like my company, we're very much focused on recruitment automation. So I don't want to plug my product too much here. I will speak to, I think you mentioned bot technology a minute ago, which has kind of been a bit of buzz as of late in recruiting and machine learning, what's going on there, and there's some interesting things happening right now that I think don't just need to necessarily include bot technology, but it offers some interesting ways to offload in a very personalized way a lot of administrative functions that are going on throughout the recruitment process. So that is an area that I'm very interested in and think has a lot of opportunity, and you know, with a machine learning layer over time, just some of the interesting things you can do with that data. So that's kind of been my focus as of late, and you know, I think that yeah, I mean, we use the only thing I'll mention too is to kind of echo. We also use Greenhouse and scorecards, which have worked really well. I'm also a huge fan of Lever, although I haven't used it personally, but heard quite a few really good things about their CRM tool they recently launched. I'm going to draw a blank on the name of it, but anyway, another one to check out.
Right, and we touched on a couple of this, but other wish list items that you guys would like to see technology address, and you know, I've always kind of wondered about, like, you know, when we're interviewing and it kind of gets to when I'm actually talking to the person across the table and knowing, you know, what to ask, but beyond just like the scorecard and like how to drive that conversation, how to engage. I've always kind of wondered, like, being able to truly replicate the interview that I'm able to do to my colleagues, especially when I have a large panel. I find that very difficult. And when we are trying to really kind of have a structured process so we can evaluate people fairly, that's something that, you know, like I previously struggled with getting like consistent interviews to be something that we can evaluate. Then, I mean, so that's kind of a wish list item. I wish like I can have something that can either guide people through interviews or like maybe give a kind of a post-mortem of an interview, so that I kind of get a sense of like how I like the context, so I can take it into account properly. Like, are there any kind of interesting items like that that you guys kind of have in mind that you'd like to see? And I'm sure with all the many entrepreneurs we have here, hopefully they're writing down ideas for future businesses as well.
This is kind of random. It's just a training tool to teach people how to interview, like via a software platform. I mean, there may be some out there, I have no idea. You know, obviously each interview process is unique, but kind of like an automated formula where you put in like the criteria you need. It teaches you how to evaluate it to the best of their ability, because a lot of organizations out there, especially ones that scale quickly, people are being promoted to management at a young age. They don't really develop those skill sets. And it's a kind of a trial and error thing, but what if you could set people up for success and interview the right way, right off the bat? I think that would be awesome.
I would say, for me, I'm always looking for like frameworks by which to operate more effectively. In the world of recruiting, and I'm not saying this is the best out there, but the one that I found most effective, especially as we've been growing our startup, is performance-based hiring. And I'm sure you guys many of you are familiar with Blue Adler. It's kind of his model for recruitment, but I found it to be very effective. And for me, I've always I've wanted to see some of what he's done, some of the frameworks, and applied in a platform solution. But I think it's again a simple framework that offers very repeatable, you know, oftentimes very predictable outcomes. So.
And for those who actually came to our last meetup in, I guess, the end of November, that actually was indeed our topic, performance-based hiring. If you go to our meetup page, you can probably find the videos to that as well. So I think we kind of hit the time for the end of our panel. So I want to now take the chance to let each of our panelists present to you individually their kind of take on, you know, what they see as the most important things, you know, about interviewing, and you know, definitely kind of take the time to think about what questions you may have for them. So when everybody kind of sits down, we'll have the chance both for you guys and for them to kind of ask each other questions and challenge each other on what really is most effective. So we're going to get started with Alan at Appboy. So Alan, all yours.